So, I just finished watching Steven Universe for the first time, and I thought it'd be good to give my initial thoughts on the show after just finishing it. So, today I'm going to try a non-scripted video, so this won't be up to the normal standards that my normal videos are, but I should be able to get it out really fast, and that allows me to keep working on my other scripts. So, let's talk about Steven Universe. So what was I expecting when I started watching Steven Universe? Well, I wasn't too sure. I hadn't heard very much about the show. I had seen the occasional image or so of Steven Universe, and I didn't think the character designs looked too good on my initial impression. But yeah, pretty much the only other thing I can think of that I knew about it was that, like, Steven solved all of his problems by just, like, talking to everything, and thinking that was maybe a bit lame. So, what did I actually think of the show when I started watching it? I really, really liked it. Like, it's been the best show I've watched in a while. I was pretty much just hooked straight away. I really enjoyed the characters. Like, Steven I thought was really fun. I thought I was going to find him annoying, to be honest, but I didn't really get that, so that was a big positive. I thought Steven might be a bit like Molly McGee from The Ghost in Molly McGee. I found her a bit much and in your face sometimes. I do like her, but, like, I wasn't drawn to her immediately like I was Steven. I thought it was very funny, and I thought the world was pretty interesting. I was very curious to hear more about Steven's world. Something that I did find a bit, like, sudden was the way we were introduced to the world. In, the first episode, we're kind of thrown straight in, like, we're not really told much about anything, and I understand that's because, we're seeing everything through Steven's perspective, but still, there's a lot of info there, I feel like, what even are the crystal gems? Like, are they aliens? Are they magic? Blah, blah, blah. Like, we don't really get any of that in the beginning. Like, I was pretty curious about how established the gems were in the human society. Humans don't really seem to care about them that much. They're never really bothered by the fact that the gems are just magic and, like, alien stuff is going on. I mean, when big stuff happens, they obviously are, but they're all very aware of it. Or at the least just don't care. The first episode is pretty weird. It's about Steven not having cookie cats because they're going out of business or something. And also summoning his shield, which is a magical weapon that the gems can summon. So already there's just a lot going on, and I already have a lot of questions. I'm not really sure how, but I feel like they probably could have eased us into the world a bit better in general. But that's a pretty minor complaint, honestly. But yeah, for the beginning of Season 1, I was definitely intrigued by the lore and stuff, but what really kept me hooked was just the lighthearted episodes. I really liked just the character episodes and, just the funny episodes. Speaking of characters, I should probably start talking about them. Now, I don't have a favorite character yet, because I only just finished watching the whole show and spin-off show and movie like a day or two ago, and I need to think on it a bit more, but there's definitely a lot of characters I really, really like. I do really, really like Steven. Like, I know that's a bit of a boring answer because he's the main character, and obviously we follow it through his eyes, but he was just a really good character, I thought. He reminds me a little bit of Luce from, like, the Owl House. He's very energetic. It was always interesting to see him unlock new powers and just see him grow and change. Like, he goes through so many character arcs, but I like that, a bit like Luce as well, that it's not just a directly positive arc, especially in the future season. He has a big decline there. That's good because, people in real life don't just get better and better all the time. We go up and down, and that's just how life is. So Steven was a really good protagonist. I will obviously talk about him more as we go along. The gems. I really liked the gems, obviously. I wouldn't like the show if I didn't like them because they're in most episodes. In fact, later in Season 5, they're not in the first half very much, and that was more of a low point for me, but we'll get to that much, much later. Garnet was probably my favorite, but it's pretty close with Pearl. I did really like Pearl. Garnet was just really funny. Like, there was a joke about her being a master of comedy because she's just so blunt, which I thought was funny.
Wow, Garnet, that was the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Garnet, master of comedy.
She was mysterious. She was very positive and stuff. And as the show gets on, we get to learn about her more, and I feel like she becomes way more open with the show. And yeah, she was really good, really cool, really funny. Pearl was very complex. I really liked Pearl. I just wish we had a few more episodes focusing on her. Like, there was a fair few really good moments, and whenever, it focuses on Pearl, I feel like she really steals the show. I feel like Garnet gets way more attention than Pearl. Amethyst, I really liked Amethyst, but she was just my least favorite. Not because I disliked her, but because I thought the others were just way better. But anyway, I really like Steven's not the only one getting character development. There's a big focus on the gems arcs, and that's really the best part of the show. It's just seeing all the characters change and evolve. All the small emotional character moments, they're easily the highlights. Like, those are the parts that always stand out for me. They carry the show more than the lore. Like, yes, the character moments are tied to lore, but the emotional journeys they go on, to me, is better than just the overarching story. The overarching story is good, and the world building is good, but really the characters are where it's at. That is easily the highlight. But before we get too far into the characters, let me bring in a friend. My best friend, Angus, also known as Goose. He makes lots of appearances on the channel. He watched Steven Universe with me, so I want to get his thoughts on this too. Okay, welcome to the show, Angus. That's right, we're calling it a show to make it sound more professional.
Oh, we got a budget?
We got a budget, that's right. Budget of 0. Anyway, let's get to the point because this is already going to be a long video. Which characters stood out to you in Steven Universe? Do you have any particular favorites?
I like Lapis Lazuli. I like Garnet.
But yes, Lapis. Lapis is, I think, a very good character. Glad you brought her up.
I think
Not
it's
prompted.
interesting that Lapis is kind of like Lars in that they're kind of reclusive. Lapis is just infinitely more likable because she's actually justified in her hatred of everything.
Something I saw people talking about. A lot of people didn't like how Lapis becomes a bit more of a comedic duo with Peridot later on. I actually
liked it.
like that because it kind of shows a bit of like the healing after some of the trauma.
Yeah, I agree.
But then I do also like that she regresses again later on, and does the thing where she steals the barn. I like how in Steven Universe Future, Steven ends up regressing in his character arc too, because, people don't just get better and always stay better. We're always
static
change.
things.
What's Rose's thing about humans? It's like,
You're supposed to change. You're never the same, even moment to moment. You're allowed and expected to invent who you are.
it ties into that, and I think that's why Lapis is interesting. A character I do really like a lot, like just because they're interesting, is Rose Quartz. Her character is really interesting on like the way she's revealed to us. We start off with a very positive view of her, and it gets deteriorated over time. I don't know. I like thinking about, is she a bad person or not? Like, there's bad things she's definitely done.
The show definitely leaves it up to interpretation.
What do you think? She's a good or bad person? Because I'm leaning more towards good, but I think she has a lot, like, too much self-interest, and I think that leads her to make a lot of mistakes.
That is true. I think that maybe her becoming Steven is like the foregoing of that, because you can look at like her past and stuff. Like, she was raised as a diamond, and even when she doesn't want to be a diamond, she becomes Rose Quartz and lives on Earth. She's still kind of f***ing people over.
Yeah.
Like, she was with Pearl, and then she just sort of ditches Pearl for Greg, and
Yeah.
Pearl's really f***ed up by that, and she doesn't really give a shit as far as we know.
I think if they were going to ever do more content, it would be very interesting to see something more from her perspective. We're seeing different sides to Rose from other characters' point of views. There's no one has like a complete picture of her, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's just really interesting that they can change our perspective of the character so fast.
Yes. What's your opinion on Jasper, just randomly? I think Jasper's a pretty good villain.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think she's probably the best villain in terms of actually being a villain to the show. Like,
Yes.
she's involved she's involved in a lot of personal story arcs. Like, she's really tied to
Yes.
Lapis and Amethyst.
I really like the stuff they did with Lapis, with getting like trapped on the ocean.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And like for Lapis's story arc, it's like a voluntary imprisonment, whereas all the other ones were self-imposed. But this one, as much as it was self-imposed, it was like she also didn't have a choice. Like,
Yeah.
she couldn't see a different way out of
Yeah,
out of that
there was those
situation.
mental
So she
chains.
exactly, yeah.
Obviously, she's a good. She has a good arc with the little bit Amethyst. I think her being the peak of what Amethyst
Same.
should have been.
Yeah.
I also like that she ties in pretty well to Steven's arc in Future.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of that as well, because it's like she's what Amethyst thinks she should be, and it's the traditional, like, typical idea of what strength is, you know?
Yeah, I think she honestly just works the best as like a villain because she actually challenges them more directly than I would say most of the other villains do.
Do you know what she is? She's strong in the real way.
She's strong in the real way. Okay, let's talk about Season 1. So Season 1 does have the very tough job of introducing the show. Season 1 has by far the most amount of episodes. It has 52 episodes. I don't think any other season even comes close to that. I really enjoyed Season 1 because it's definitely more lighthearted than the later seasons. Steven isn't, burdened by all of the trauma he's gone through yet, so that's always pretty nice. I've noticed that the animation is definitely obviously a lot rougher in the first season. One of my favorite episodes was definitely the cat fingers one. That episode was so fricked up, bro. That was just not okay. I really enjoyed Tiger Millionaire. That was a great episode. I thought that was just funny. I think by like episode 12, we really start to dive into the lore a bit more. That's when we first get Fusion, I think. Don't quote me on that, but that is the episode where Pearl and Amethyst fuse and become a giant woman. The episode is called Giant Woman, so, pretty accurate. And, I think that was a really good episode because it starts to set up the stuff with Garnet. Some other big stuff that Season 1 does is it introduces Lion. Lion is a pink lion, crazy, and he has some connections with Steven's mother, so that starts to keep the lore going as well. Another really big thing that happened in Season 1 was in episode 25, where Steven gets a magic mirror. This would end up introducing Lapis, and she becomes one of the biggest, characters in the show, I would say. Definitely one of my favorite characters. She doesn't do too much in Season 1 or anything, but the setup is there, so that is really good. Steven Universe in general, most of the season finals, they're kind of a mixed bag, I would say. And Season 1, I think, has one of the better ones. In this episode, stuff starts getting real, enemy gems start attacking, and we get the big reveal that Garnet was a fusion. This was a pretty big deal. They also left a lot of little clues throughout the show, which I thought was just great setup. Obviously, we have that episode Big Woman, which introduces the idea of fusion. And then throughout the show, we kind of get a few hints, like the fact that Garnet just has straight up 2 gems is probably pretty obvious. I don't even know if it's like a secret or anything, but I was going, oh my god, she's a fusion, you know. And then when they revealed that, I felt pretty validated. I kind of started to pick up on it in episode 11 where they go to the arcade, and I think Garnet shows her eyes for the first time and we see their different colors. But anyway, back to the finale. Yeah, the finale was just really good. It was just really intense. It was dramatic. Lots of good reveals. It had one of the best song numbers in the show. The season finale for this one was just peak. Very good. Very good Steven Universe. Before we move on, I'm going to throw it to Angus and we're going to try and narrow down our 3 favorite episodes. Okay, welcome back, Angus.
I'm just Tiger Million is a really funny episode.
That's just a good, that was one of my favorite ones.
Really
as a joke
funny.
one. That was just a funny one.
Giant Woman's pretty good. We learn about what fusion is, which is really important for the
Yes.
themes of the show going forward.
Mirror Gem. Mirror Gem, I would say, is up there for mine. That's Lapis's first
That's
episode.
true. That's like the first real story arc.
That's like the
that
big,
goes across
yeah.
multiple episodes.
So Mirror Gem is one of the better
And
episodes.
there are a lot of good episodes. I think Jailbreak is a really good one.
Yeah, we won't talk too much about Jailbreak just because I think I covered that on my own.
Tiger Millionaire.
Yeah, Tiger Millionaire was up there for me. The Ocean Gem was really good. The Lapis's second episode.
See, all of the good episodes of Lapis
Lapis,
is on, yeah?
that's because she's one of the most interesting characters.
I do think she's a really good character.
I actually think it's really hard to figure out what my least favorite episode would be of the season because there's none that in this season that really stand out to me.
What about Garnet?
Oh, Garnet Universe was pretty
That
mid.
wasn't...
That was
yeah.
pretty mid.
Again, episodes that don't connect to anything,
Yeah.
you know? Like, even the jokey episodes, they have some purpose, generally.
They got
you
general
know?
character progression normally. Okay,
Out of Mirror Gem and Ocean Gem, which one's better? I think Ocean Gem's better.
yeah.
That's where they go. She makes the tower.
I was
So
gonna
Tiger
say, yeah.
Millionaire, Giant Woman. I think we should get rid of Tiger Millionaire just because law.
Fair. Get rid of Tiger Millionaire.
So the Return or Jailbreak, which is better? I think the Return's a little better.
You reckon? Oh, I was gonna say Jailbreak.
I reckon they show up at the beach. It's like the Return is like an actual stakes episode. There's like holy they could actually lose here.
Okay. Our favorite ones, we think, this is not very conclusive because there's too many good episodes, is Ocean Gem. This is the episode where Lapis steals the ocean.
Makes a big tower. I think it's maybe a bit of an action heavy episode, but I like the bit at the ending where Steven goes up there and does he Steven talk.
He does do some Steven talking. That one actually had a lot of really good, screenshot wallpaper material. Like, when they're up on the top of the tower, they go hard on the space pictures. Like, I'm telling you, the space pictures are good. I'm flashing them on screen right now. You don't even know how good they are.
I don't know. I can't see it.
You can't see this, Angus, but they're good. Giant Woman, Angus. Why did you like Giant Woman?
I like Giant Woman because I think it's funny and also the law, and it's got a pretty funny song in it.
It shows us, I think, fusion for the first time, and
Yes.
that's pretty much one of the biggest concepts in the show, and is pretty much important for every other season. So, again, a big lore episode. I think Steven's song is funny. In that, I think it's so silly. I'm like, what
Does
is
it
this,
go?
bro?
And also, it's also a really big episode that brings Pearl and Amethyst together.
True.
Because although they'll have a bit of a conflict again throughout the show, but this is the episode where it's like the thing that brings them together is that they both really care for Steven.
So, the Return I've already talked about a little bit, but obviously it's really good. I think it's got one of the most intense build-ups in probably all of Steven Universe, honestly. It's probably up there for one of the most tense moments through the whole show, I would say.
Yeah. When Jasper goes down there on the beach and just destroys them all.
Okay, and finally, our least favorite episode of the season was Garnet's Universe, because it's not connected to much, and I think it's got a slightly different animation style.
Isn't old mate Ronaldo the bad guy?
Ronaldo's the bad guy, and I don't love Ronaldo.
Yeah, I think he's kind of lame.
Okay, passing it back to you, Past Ben. Okay, Season 2. So, Season 2, again, was really, really good. The main focus of Season 2, I would say, was probably around Peridot. Peridot starts as the villain for the season, but becomes one of their friends. She's definitely up there for one of the best characters. She's an absolute gremlin. I think that is probably the best way to describe her. She's just a gremlin. The season final for this one builds up to this thing called the Cluster. I actually thought they faced the Cluster in this season, but no, that's actually the next season. This one just builds up to that, and has kind of a lackluster ending. It just feels like any other episode, focusing on Peridot's character arc. Overall, this was a really good season. It was a lot shorter than the first season, with only 26 episodes, but still really good. To save time, I'll just throw it straight back to Angus and I so we can discuss our 3 favorite episodes of this one. Season 2, Angus. This is the season of Uncle Grandpa in it.
Oh yeah,
That is the
because
worst
I
episode in the
didn't
whole fucking show. There's
Yeah,
nothing
that-
even close.
yeah, you're right.
Like, without
You are
question.
correct.
It's like the only episode that's not canon. Why did they do
Yeah.
that? Like, why is Uncle Grandpa, like... Okay, another thing I need to get out of the way is they do the thing where Uncle Grandpa helps Steven learn how to summon his shield. And
Yes,
then, like,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next episode in the actual show, because it's not canon, they have to do it again. Like,
Yeah.
so they're going to
Oh,
pretend
so
like that
dumb.
didn't happen because it didn't happen. So there's no point to that character arc.
And it's easily fixed. You just move this episode to later.
You just delete this episode. That's how you fix it. Sorry, we were supposed to be starting with the good episodes, but this one's just so obvious it needs to be spoken about right now.
Right
Okay,
now.
right now, get out of here, Uncle Grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, that show looks so bad. I haven't seen it, but I'm not watching that show, guys.
Yeah.
No matter how many comments.
Just glancing it, and this is obviously such a loose list. I think
Yeah.
Swan to the Sword is a really good one.
Really good episode. Yep.
I think it's got a decent song in it.
Mm-hmm.
Do it for him. I think that's one of the better songs in the show. It establishes Stephen and Connie's relationship a lot, and establishes Pearl's relationship to Stephen a lot. And
It also
her
reveals a lot
relationship
about her
to-
psyche, like her general.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
how little she values herself, and like she just
Yes.
puts the people she cares about above herself. Nothing is left for her. Like
Yeah,
it's just
and how dangerous that is
Yeah.
when she projects that onto Connie's role in Stephen's life. That's a really good episode.
I liked Keystone Motel a lot, actually. It was the episode where Garnet, Greg, and Steven go on a
That
road
is a
trip.
really good episode.
And, like, Garnet falls apart because she's pissed off at Pearl for
That's right.
tricking her into fusing.
I think that can go up there. So this is kind of like the Peridot season, I feel like.
Yeah, that is definitely the Peridot season.
Okay,
Okay,
what can we take off?
Sworn to the Sword was a really, really good episode because it explores our characters really well. Isn't that right, Angus?
That's right. It's got a good catchy song.
It's got a great song.
I like Keystone Motel. I like the way that you can see the differences between the two personalities of Garnet, even though normally they're in harmony and stuff. You see what happens when they freak out. And also the elemental powers are kind of fun to play with. And
True.
it's so awkward when they're in the diner and she breaks the table.
I hate that bit. I feel so bad for Greg because he has to pay for it and he can never go back to his favorite restaurant.
Yeah, that sucks. I think maybe the moon one, actually. I think we learn about what the gems are. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this one.
Yeah.
We get a map of the world, and we see that Australia's really f***ed up.
Yeah.
And there's a giant crater in the middle of Russia. What the What happened in this timeline?
Do you know what it looks like?
No.
It looks like
What does it
from
look like?
Doctor Who Season 1 where the Daleks like melt the Earth in the future.
It could have been great.
Yes. So
I
that's the
think
moon
that
one?
is it.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, Season 3. Season 3 might be my favorite season. It's pretty hard. I'll talk about that more. It could be between 3 or 4. Season 3 has a lot more focus on Lapis. Lapis is back. And it concludes the cluster. So the cluster arc was really set up in Season 2, but not quite concluded. So we opened Season 2 following the cluster again. To be honest, the cluster, it was good, but I don't know. I think it could have been more interesting. So at this point, Steven has talks down Peridot to becoming a good guy. So he's starting to set up that trend of him just talking his way out of everything, which is fine. It's a good lesson to have. But, I don't know. The cluster is like a super weapon made out of lots of shattered gems. And I don't know. I feel like there just could have been a more interesting way to defeat the cluster. Steven kind of just connects his mind to it by accident and just, they become homies. I don't know. For such a big threat, it could have been handled in a more interesting way. I'm not saying violence is necessarily what they have to do, but you can't talk to everything, and this was fine for now. When I first watched this, I was thinking maybe the cluster will come back more, and it does come back, but I don't think it's enough to justify this big arc for it. It just doesn't do that much, really. That's just my brief thoughts on that. There was the episode Mr. Greg, which was a really good episode for Pearl, so that was another good one. I feel this season just had a lot of good character moments. There was also a lot of human episodes in here, which is fine, because I like a good mix of human episodes with gems. I mean, the gem episodes are obviously better, but I feel like the balance was really good in this season. The world is just starting to feel really filled out at this point. We have the ongoing enemy of Jasper, and I'm pretty sure this is where we start to have Amethyst's arc. This season had 24 episodes in it, which is about the same as the last, so this is kind of the new average for a season now. And the last one I really, really enjoyed. Steven gets put in a bubble and lost in space. And, it's very intense. But it's also really funny. Steven gets trapped with this Ruby who's trying to kill him. And, I don't know, it's a really serious situation. It felt like a good season final. But again, just nowhere near as good as season 1's finale. That just felt like a big epic build-up, They really worked and earned for that one. This one feels like another episode again to me. But again, I will throw it back to Angus and I to discuss our favorite episodes there. Season 3 and 4 are my two favorite seasons.
I'm already seeing a lot of ones I want to put on the list
Yeah, I know.
already from these 5. So I think that Super Watermelon Island is really good.
Yeah.
I really like how Steven possesses the watermelon.
Yeah.
Gem Drill, that's the cluster
Gem Drill.
episode, right?
Cluster episode, that's not that high up for me, to be honest. I think the cluster arc was a bit of a letdown, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not gonna like necessarily leave it here, but just because of the letdown, I might put it in for worst episode of the season so far. Just for now, because I can't remember what the other ones are.
Steven Floats. I don't know.
Floats. These are
I really
good
like
episodes.
Steven Floats. Like, it's not really important to the lore or anything, but it's just it's just a classic Steven Universe episode.
Funny bit where they're playing chess.
Yeah, that's really funny. I just think the concept is funny. I just like it.
I like Hit the Diamond, but I have mixed feelings about the rubies. I don't like how dumb they are.
They're very dumb. Mr. Greg, go down Angus. Mr. Greg is a really good episode.
Mr. Greg might be one of
that might be my favorite one of the season, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Mr. Greg, very emotional.
Musical episode.
Pearl's song is obviously really good. There's a lot of
musical enjoyer.
I'm not even a big musical enjoyer, but that was a good episode.
I am.
Greg's songs were good as well. I liked his song about not needing much to be happy. Also, him being rich was pretty cool. I like that it just explains why they can screw up so much stuff, and Greg could just pay for it. Oh, Alone at Sea.
That's a really good one.
That would be maybe my favorite Lapis episode for this season.
Yeah, it's actually really f***ed up when you really think about it. It's almost like an analogy for like abusive relationships and stuff like that. It's really messed up. Probably one of the more mature episodes.
But yeah, that's what I really like about Steven Universe is that they do tackle very intense stuff. This is a perfect example of that. And it's nice, those small moments where Lapis is actually happy.
That's true. I like Greg and Lapis. They're funny together. This is difficult. I think I'm going to get rid of...
Because it's like the best season.
Super Watermelon Island.
I really like Greg the Babysitter as well as an episode because it sets up a lot of questions about Steven, like how he works.
Yes. It's also good like history for how they thought about him at first.
The New Lars, best episode? No, that made me so cringe. That could be up there for...
I kind of like it.
It's good, but it makes me cringe. Like... Ooh, Bubbled. I really like Bubbled as well.
Bubbled's good.
Bubbled is a really good episode. Steven Floats, I'm sorry, but you're bubbled.
You're bubbled.
Get out of here. Bubbled.
You're getting bubbled.
It leaves, this has got to be one of the most traumatic things Steven goes through. Like, he nearly suffocates in space. He nearly dies in space. I'm nearly willing to just skip a bad episode for this one.
Do you want to put the New Lars?
Video. Yeah.
Are you vibing the New Lars?
I'm thinking New Lars.
But I can put it on there for you.
It's your section, but it's the only one I can think of that made me cringe heaps. I just cringed a lot at the New Lars.
Yeah, right. Season 3 is a really good season.
It's a really good season. Do you remember that bit where Lars Steven breaks into Steven's house and everyone's like, hey, he's breaking into Steven's house. They're going to beat up Steven. I just want to die when that happens. Season 4. Let's talk about Season 4. What happened in Season 4? Well, quite a lot happened. One of my favorite arcs is that Greg gets taken into space and Steven and the Gems have to go save him. That was just a really fun arc. We got to see the diamonds, which was pretty cool. That was a big tease. Lots of big lore drops. And it was just, I like multi-part stories, so that was really cool. There was lots of good one-off episodes in this season. Probably the most important thing that happened in this whole season, though, is that Pumpkin became a character. So that was pretty epic. But this season had such a good season finale. This was probably the second best, or it is pretty close with the first season. But Season 4 and Season 1 had the best season finales. Basically, some gems came to kidnap a bunch of people, and it was accidentally Steven's fault. Steven ends up sacrificing himself, and that was a really crazy cliffhanger. That was really exciting to see what was going to happen next. But the build-up to this finale was really good. People start going missing in the last 2 episodes, I think it is, 2 or 3 episodes. And we start getting a hint that something dangerous is going on. And it's just nice to know that, something serious stuff is happening. Guess I'll pass it back to Angus and I to discuss our favorite episodes. Okay, we're back for Season 4. What do you think, Goose? What do you think?
So far, I'm kind of in the opposite reaction to Season 3. Of the ones I'm looking at, it's kind of like the ones I don't like as much, actually, immediately. I think Kindergarten Kid is kind of like a Wile E. Coyote. Know Your Fusion isn't that good.
3 gems and a baby. That's a really, really good episode. Something I like about that episode is we see a little bit more of Greg's grief for Rose, in that episode, because most of the time he's pretty chill about it. He's very at peace with what happened. Because we see in the tapes and stuff, even in her last months, they know it's going to happen, but they decide to make the most out of the time. But in this point, it's still fresh for Greg. and it's, he's struggling to cope without having his partner. So I think it's just interesting seeing that the gems are very different. Then they're completely naive to human life, and they don't understand what's going on with Rose either. Yeah, they kidnap a baby.
I agree for all the things you said. What about the zoo arc?
I really liked the zoo arc. That's why this season is up there for me, to be honest.
I think Steven's dream is one of the better episodes. I really like the bit where you see Blue Diamond at like the chariot thing, whatever it's called. I think that's a really good moment. I think it's a really good payoff. We learn a bit more about the diamonds, and it's really kind of scary when you see her like weeping over the thing and you don't really know what she's gonna look like. You turn around, you see her crying, and Steven like feels that emotion and stuff as well.
Yeah. Something I like about this episode is it's one of the few episodes I feel Steven has serious consequences, because he stands up to Garnet and all that and is like, I'm going to go investigate this anyway, and then Greg gets taken. Like,
that's true.
They explore this in future a lot, but Steven doesn't have to face too many consequences. He does a bit, but...
Yeah, that's one of the things I don't like about the show as much.
Adventure in Light Distortion. I really liked that episode. This is the episode where... like they go into warp speed and they go faster than
the bodies can't.
And I think that moment where Steven is scared that he's killed the gems or something, like they're not there to help him. Like I don't know if he thinks he's killed them.
Yeah, that's true. That's a pretty messed up episode.
We look like psychos. We're just like, the messed up ones are the better ones.
It's true.
They are, because they test our characters. But
isn't Rocknaldo?
Finds all the
he
rock
joins
people.
the crystal. Doesn't he join the crystal gems in this one?
Yeah,
that might be the
my
worst.
Least favorite. I get that it's important for Steven to like say no to people and stuff. I can't stand Ronaldo. He's so bad. He's so full of himself. Like thinking he can just move into Steven's house.
Just take over.
He's just such a loser. Season 3 is probably my favorite season, even though this has got the big arcs in it.
I agree. I think season 3 is so far the best season, and Ronaldo sucks.
Ronaldo sucks. We're never talking about him again. Season 5. Okay, so Season 5 starts off with a really good start. As I previously mentioned, Steven sacrifices himself and he ends up getting taken to space. This was just a really good way to start the season. I was a little worried because Lars was there and I don't really like Lars very much. I mean, you're not supposed to, I don't think. But man, first few episodes, real good. We get the trial, which was just insane. Steven's been separated from the gem, so he doesn't have that support group anymore. And that whole arc just was really interesting, and I kind of like how they solved the arc. So they do escape, and Lars actually freaking dies. I was so shocked that Lars actually properly died, but Steven brings him back to life with magic. And I thought this was pretty interesting. Lars becomes pink, and Steven travels through Lars's hair, and then he can exit out of his lion. Now, if you haven't seen the show, I don't know why you're watching this if you haven't seen the show, but I was like, what the hell? That is actually such an interesting reveal. Like, it's kind of a cop-out because Steven gets cut straight back to home. But I thought it was interesting because it explained Lion. I thought it was a really interesting cliffhanger. And I'm like, well, now Lars is stuck in space. How is Steven going to solve this? This is where I think the season starts to let me down a little bit. So Lars is in space and Steven makes it home. You'd think he'd be like getting a ship or something, or they'd be trying to find a way to get to Lars. No. Back to the status quo. Let's just forget about Lars. Lars is not that important. We're going back to the status quo. There's literally an episode when, like, they're just looking for Pumpkin. Pumpkin's missing. Who cares about Lars, though? You know, it's not like he's in space, his family misses him. No, we're gonna find Pumpkin right now. That's the priority, bro. I thought that was pretty funny. But, I wasn't too big of a fan of this, like, little section between, I don't know. I just couldn't believe that Lars is in space, and no one seems to really care at all. And the gems are, like, barely in that season up until episode 18, I think it is. In episode 18, we get a really good Pearl episode, like probably one of the best Pearl episodes. And after that, we start to move away from human shenanigans, and I think the season gets really back on track. We have a really good arc with Garnet. Garnet discovers the truth about Rose Quartz, and that makes her split up. I really enjoyed that. I liked the cowboy episode. It was kind of random, but it was pretty good. And that led up to the wedding arc, which was really good. And then after that, that just pushed us straight into the homeworld stuff. So after this, we're building up to the season finale. I thought it was interesting that we learn some of Steven's new powers, and it kind of gets a bit weird after this. Yeah, the diamonds come to Earth, and they end up eventually discovering that, you know, Steven is Pink Diamond. Spoiler alert, but you shouldn't be watching this if you care about spoilers. And then we had a weird bit of time where Steven goes to Homeworld and is learning about the diamonds and stuff. I thought this was really good. But the actual ending itself, I'm not sure exactly how I sit on it. I think it was a good ending, but I don't think it was the best ending. I think Season 1's finale was better, to be honest. This is a good ending, but it doesn't feel like the whole show's ending, you know what I mean? I don't know if you know what I mean. So we finally get to meet White Diamond. She was a really cool villain. I really wish we'd gotten to see more of her. She's barely in it though. She's like in nearly no episodes, so I'm thinking of doing a villain ranking on her. She won't get that high of a score probably because she just doesn't have much screen time, so there's just not a lot to cover. And the face-off with White Diamond was really, really cool. I really like Steven's gem being separated from him. I like that it shows that Rose Quartz is really gone. I think she's in the gem still, but it's Steven now, you know, like it's not Pink Diamond pretending to be Steven. Steven is Steven. But something I kind of wish a little more with this ending is I wish Steven was challenged more. Now, I know that's probably weird to say, I don't know, he gets challenged a lot. But what I mean by that is his philosophy of always just, we can be friends with everyone, never gets challenged that hard. Jasper, you know, pushes back a bit against that, but really Steven can talk to any problem that he faces, and he eventually does that for pretty much everyone in the show. I'm not saying he can't do that, but I wish there'd been a time where he doubted it a lot more. I wish he'd really doubted that he could actually convince White Diamond. Maybe he has to look to an alternative, and then maybe he does come back to talking her down again, and that does work, but I feel like it just should have been challenged a little more, you know? I don't know if that makes sense or if I'm being too picky, but I feel like, you know, he just does it too much, and it would have been cool to see him, you know, struggle a bit more with this and even doubt if he's even capable of doing it. Now, they do explore this in the future show, so we'll talk about that later, but I think the future show does really address some of the issues I had with the finale of Steven Universe. I think the ending was a little bit rushed. I think they could have spent a lot more time on this. Now, this is fixed because of the movie and the future show, but at the very end, once they beat White Diamond, they just go back to Earth, and we have a really quick montage of just everything being fixed. You know, everyone's all good, we're all besties now, everyone's healed, blah, blah, blah. I wish it had been a bit more like Amphibia. I really love Amphibia's ending. I would say it's like nearly perfect. I mean, that's probably an exaggeration, but who cares? It's divided into multiple parts. The first part is all about fighting the big bad guy. Then the last episode covers them fighting the core, which yes, does take up a bit of that time, but a majority of that episode is spent saying goodbye to our characters. And I think Steven Universe is just so much about the characters. Like, the villains have never really been that big of a part of it, for me at least. It's all been about their small character moments. And, you know, Steven's made a lot of friends across the whole town, all the humans, gems, and I think it would have been nice to see where they were going. This complaint is completely fixed by the movie and the future show because it shows where they're at in the future, but when I first watched it, that was my thought. I was thinking, you know, we need to say goodbye to these characters properly. Like, we barely even saw Steven's dad in that last episode. You know, he's been an important character. And, you know, we just rushed through the ending, and I'm like, wow, I don't even have time to, like, get all emotional about this. But besides that, it was pretty good. I had a lot more I had to say, I think, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Anyway, I will pass it to Angus and I. Season 5,
Season
Angus.
5, the last season of the original show. Probably one of the weaker seasons.
It has one of the strongest starts, I think.
I agree. So of these four ones, which is the best? Because there's one story arc.
Number 1 is not my favorite because I wasn't settled on Lars being part of this adventure yet. He does win me over later on.
Trial is interesting. It does set up Pink Diamond not being actually killed by Rose Quartz.
Is it Lars's head is the one where he dies?
That's where he dies, I think.
That, I don't know why, but that was like one of the biggest moments for me.
That
Like,
might be
I don't
up
even
there.
like Lars.
I put it up there.
I don't even like Lars, but
Well, it's the start of his redemption as
yeah,
well.
it makes him a good character.
I'm going to put Kevin Party at the worst episode. I just don't like the whole Connie being pissed off at Steven.
I don't mind it, but I don't think the resolution was amazing. Like, I think she could have also apologized a bit more to Steven because he sacrificed his life for her. I do think her justification's pretty good of saying that, like, Steven's talking about how it would be unbearable for her to be taken, and Connie's saying that, like, that's what she did to him as well. Like, I think that in a way that's kind of fair.
Nah, Steven was being a hero.
He was being a hero.
Yeah.
I think what he did was right. I just can understand why, but she should have
Yeah.
still apologized. And she also got
Exactly.
Lars trapped in space longer because she took mine with her sofa.
True.
Connie indirectly pushed Lars getting saved further away.
A single pale rose. That's
That-
a really good one.
Is easily in my favorites. Like, that's favorites for the whole show. Like, that was one of the best
Yeah.
episodes because, like, the reveal is insane.
It's really messed up. I like that it's just Pearl following her order because she's still like a Pearl at heart, you know?
And I think the reveal itself is just absolutely crazy because I don't know how many people guessed that she was Pink Diamond first. I think all the pieces for the puzzle are there, but I just don't know if you would put it together. Like, I think you could come to that conclusion, but I think it's just concealed well, and I think it's good. And I think the reveal of Pearl pretending to be Rose, doing the diamond thing, gives it an extra layer of like craziness. That's a great episode.
I
I'm not saying
agree.
we should put this in the best or anything, but I do really like the cowboy episode.
Yeah, I was thinking that. It's
I
just
don't
a
think
funny
it's one of the
episode.
best, but I just thought it was a good
Yeah.
episode, and I do like that they go into the fact that with relationships that you should also be able to figure out who
Be
you
yourself
are
a bit.
separately
Yeah.
as well in that relationship. So, honorable
I
mention,
agree.
escapism. That
Oh,
was a
yes,
great
this is the one where he
episode.
goes across the ocean, isn't he?
I really want to put it in there, but this is the final season, and I think there's too much going on here.
I agree. I think that the show
Sorry,
wraps
Melon.
up it's way too messy at the end. What
Hello?
about the wedding episode?
The wedding episode was really good.
It does get crashed by the diamonds at the end. It's a longer episode. It's actually twice as long. You know what? I reckon that could go up there.
I agree, because I actually like that the diamonds crashed it at the end, because that was one of the more important things, in the show, I guess, building up for Ghana at least. And then it pushes us immediately into the final arc, so it's like this
Yes.
important moment. I think most of the diamond stuff,
I didn't like how quickly the diamonds had to turn around. It's almost like the reason that they were bad, it's almost like they were good all along. The only reason they were bad is because they were ignorant to what was actually going on
yeah.
Earth.
I don't know, the final episode, I have a lot of complaints. I've talked about this in the video already. I really like the scene where Steven's diamond is removed. I think that is one of the best scenes in the show,
Is that in the
reckon.
last episode?
Yeah, a lot happens in that
Yeah,
episode.
no, that
Most-
is really good. That's a
That-
really good moment.
I think it's great because there's a pretty big moment where people genuinely don't know what will happen. Because throughout the show, we've been told a lot about how the world of Steven Universe works. We've learned a lot about how the gem fusion stuff works, and
The
we've
mechanics.
seen how they can be turned into objects, and that suppresses the gems. So when we see that the gem is in Steven, maybe Steven is stopping, like his body being
Rose
around
from
the gem
forming.
from forming.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big moment where we don't know, like, I think White's argument, like about, Rose being hidden there, is very, very compelling. From what we've seen through the show, through the flashbacks, through all the build-up, there's a lot
Even
of people...
Rose says it herself.
Yeah.
She says that whenever you feel yourself, like you like yourself, that's me loving you. Yeah.
Even Pearl says it when she says, like, I see you in, like, sometimes I hear you there.
And also they just call
Yeah.
him Rose throughout the show.
And I think that builds up a moment where I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
I
towards
thought that
the-
Rose would return.
Yeah, I
and
thought
fight
Rose would return
White.
and fight White. But obviously, that didn't happen. And I think what did happen was far better. Like,
Yes, I agree.
it was just a great moment. I should do a video on why that scene is good.
I really
But,
like when the gem comes out and forms, and you have the screen split into two, and it's like
Yeah.
Steven looking at himself. Like it's one POV shot from two POVs. Is it replacing Lars's head?
No, I think so. There's a lot of flaws of this episode, but that moment is just so good that I think it should go there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right.
I think Single Pale Rose is still the best of this season. Even though this is probably my least favorite season, I think it's got some of the better moments, but it's just, on average,
Yeah.
one of the weaker seasons. Okay, so the Steven Universe movie. Now, right off the bat, I'm not really the biggest fan of musicals, but you know what? This one didn't bother me. The songs were pretty good. To start it off, I really liked the new setting of the world. I really like the little home world, the new city that they're building for the gems. I like seeing Steven's new house, and I like just how the show opens up with them celebrating the future. I really wish there had been a time jump in the original show, but this completely fixes it. That addresses what I wanted to see. It's nice seeing the characters in their new designs in the future. It was just cool. The new villain, Spinel, was really interesting. If I was to do a villain ranking, it would probably be on her, because I think she's probably the best to talk about. She's got very interesting character motivation. She's just animated really well. She's got stretchy powers, so that's always a very fun thing to do with animation. The plot was pretty interesting. I liked seeing the gems reset. I thought that was an interesting angle, which I didn't really see coming at all. Something that did bother me a little bit about the movie was Spinel's weapon, the poison, spaceship thing. It's like injecting poison into the earth that will destroy all organic life on there. And, that makes sense and all. But it ends up injecting all of the poison, and they pretty much blow up the drill, and it's mostly fine. I know Steven has to kiss the ground to use his magic healing powers to get rid of it, but I don't know, I feel like it was hyped up to be so dangerous and so toxic and threatening, and it didn't do anything. I don't know, I feel like it was really oversold. I don't know, it only appears to have damaged Beach City, and if all of it was used, it's supposed to destroy the whole world. Yeah, that's my only kind of complaint about that. The animation looked clean. I liked the animation. The animation just looked a little bit better than the original series, I think. Maybe I'm tricking myself. Steven's new design is pretty cool. It was really weird getting used to his deep voice, but that didn't take too long to get used to. I like that Spinel, the villain. I really liked that they tried talking to her multiple times and it didn't really work. But yeah, I like that it wasn't as straightforward as normal. Steven does convince her, but then she kind of breaks again because she's not trusting, and that's kind of what I wanted a bit more. in the original show is for it to not be so simple for him to just go, oh, well, let's be friends now, blah, blah, blah. Because, you know, that's kind of the reputation I think Steven Universe has. I definitely think the show is far more complicated than that. I think it gets a bad rap on that part. Something I found really weird was the diamonds in this. It makes sense, you know, that they're all buddies and stuff with Steven, but man, the contrast between White Diamond in the last episode and this episode is insane. Like, I can see how they can get there, but we just don't see a lot of that, I feel like. I feel like it's just so crazy. They're all like, oh, Steven, come live with us, boo. And I don't know, I was like, whoa, this is kind of weird, bro. Yeah, the movie was really good. I liked the movie. The movie probably would have been enough to satisfy my urge for seeing the future, but I'm really glad we got Steven Universe Future to top that. That's an even better bonus because it explores Steven's character a lot better. But if they had just done the movie after the original TV show, I still think I would have been happy, you know, with what we got. But good thing we've still got Steven Universe Future. Steven Universe Future. So Steven Universe Future has gone through a lot of changes compared to the original show. A lot of it is good, but there's also a lot of, you know, mixed stuff in there for me as well. I was talking to one of my friends about it, and when they were talking about it, they said it felt more kid-like, and I think I can understand why they felt this way. Even though it's focusing on more mature things, I feel like the messages are kind of... they're a bit more in your face. I feel like they're explained to you a bit more in the first half of the season. Like, the message for the episode is generally pretty obvious. I don't know. I don't exactly know what it is exactly, but it does feel like less subtle in its storytelling. One other thing is, there's not as many fun, goofy episodes in Steven Universe Future. I really like the light-hearted, goofy episodes as well. But on the reverse of that, I feel like every episode has a very important step in Steven's new character arc. I like that continued continuity. There's not like some big overarching threat, it's just about Steven specifically. It's like all these individual problems that are built up. That is probably my absolute favorite part about Steven Universe Future, is the fact that all of the stuff that's happened in the original show, that's affected Steven on a major level, and I think it was really interesting to see them address, you know, a child who went through all of this stuff, and how would he process that and handle that. And he starts to feel like he's losing grip on his world. On average, I don't know if I liked the episodes more, but I think the story it was telling was really good. And I think the show really, really picked up on the second half. I think maybe around episode 13 and 14, I just, like, that's when I was really hooked. I think episode 13 is where Steven proposes to Connie, I think. And then after that, it just, you know, it really messes him up. There is the episode Growing Pains, where Steven goes to the doctor. And from there, like, it's so good. Like, Steven he's really losing his stuff right now. The conclusion I thought was way better than the original conclusion. I liked the ending to the original show, but I don't feel like it felt like a proper ending for the whole show. This really gave it the send-off that I think the show deserved. I liked that we spent a bit more time saying goodbye to people. I feel like the diamonds have always been a big background thing, you know, they're being a big thing for the lore, but not as big of a thing for Steven. I mean, they have been pretty big, especially Pink Diamond, obviously, but the diamonds just weren't involved enough, I don't think, to be the big final focus of the last season. So I feel like having this season focus on Steven himself and his friends was just a much better choice for it. I do like that, you know, Steven has changed a lot. His character arc is not always a positive one. As I said before, like Luce, Steven has a bit of a negative character arc, you know. He gets better, then he gets worse. He's like a person, like anyone else, you know. We always go up and down. We never just get better and better and better. We face things that really knock us down, and this really knocks Steven down, and I thought it was just handled really well. I thought it was very interesting. So, my general thoughts are, I think the first half of the season was a little weak. The second half was really strong. I just really liked the second half. I don't know, it was interesting to see Steven in a declining state, to be honest. Like, he just gets worse and worse, and I was really not sure how they were going to handle it. I wasn't sure how you could even fix this, to be honest. By the end, he's getting pretty messed up. Steven Universe has always had fairly complicated characters, and it's nice to see Steven get really complicated. It was nice to see, in the end, all the characters have to unite to help Steven, because, spoiler alert, but Steven is kind of the final boss of the show. He actually becomes basically Godzilla, like a pink Godzilla. They've got to talk him down. I do think maybe this ending could have been a bit longer. It's only a 12-minute episode, I think. It was just a bit quick, the conclusion, but honestly, that's a very minor complaint again. This just felt like it fit into the themes of Steven Universe better, because Steven Universe, I feel, is just not that strong with its villains. But with its main cast, it is extremely strong. But I think this was a really good continuation for the show, and even though I don't think this is anywhere near the best season of Steven Universe, I think this just adds a lot to Steven, and I think that's really important. So even though I don't think this was the best season, I think this fixed a lot of my problems with the show, because it also explores the Jasper, who Steven, I don't think he ever can talk her down. There's not a single point where he can convince her to be on his side through just talking. He actually ends up like killing her temporarily and then bringing her back to life, and that kind of changes things for her. I don't know, that's something that should have been explored. Not, he doesn't have to kill her, I'm not saying that. But we should be exploring that, some people don't want to accept kindness. Not everyone's going to be able to be talked down. And I think that was important to explore in this show. I think it was good that they explored the future of the show more. And I liked seeing where all the characters were at. It's nice to see that everyone except Steven really seems to have positively progressed forwards. Now we can focus on Steven again, who is the heart and soul of the show. I'm rambling a bit, but yeah, that's how I feel about the Steven Universe future. I feel like it was breaking down the original show a bit. It took the flaws from the original show, and that's what it focused on, and I think that was just a perfect thing to do. Okay, I'm going to pass it to Angus and I, so we can talk about our favorite episodes and least favorite episodes from this season. Okay, so, Angus, Steven Universe future.
Steven Universe future, here we are. I think it starts off pretty slow. I think a lot of the better episodes are going to be towards the end.
I definitely agree. With Steven Universe future, the more I think about it, the more my opinion changes on it. When I first watched it, it was definitely pretty low for me, I think.
Yes, it's just because it starts so nothing burger.
I think the general tone of the show, obviously it's extremely different, I would say, from the original show, because like it focuses on Steven's mental state declining, essentially. So I think there's a lot less room for comedic episodes. I feel like this season is not as enjoyable to watch, but I think it's one of the best arcs in the show. I like the ending part of it. I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about it. When I think about Steven Universe, this is probably the part I think about the most. Basically from the part where he proposes to Connie, past. I think that is some of the best stuff in Steven Universe, honestly. And I think some of the earlier stuff before that, like, I think a lot of it's awkward and uncomfortable, but I think that's just the nature of the topics they're talking about as well.
One of the major things I didn't like so much about the original show is that I don't think his ideology was challenged enough. I feel like this show really shows like the darker alternative to what Steven believes is like a confrontation of that. And there's a point in the story where he actually like gives into that,
Yeah,
and I think that's good. I think we need to see characters fail.
I don't know. Yeah. I think it was a bold choice to make it such a depressing show. Like, most episodes end on a bad note. Like, 80% of them, I would say, in this season end like with things getting worse and worse. And I can see why a lot of people would, not enjoy that, especially since the original show, a big part of it is it's like goofy episodes, but there's not really room for goofy episodes in this arc.
I do think that the funny, happy, silly episodes of the original show is part of the appeal, definitely. I think that's definitely what got a lot of people hooked into it, because it's, it's fun.
That's why I do and don't like this season. So I think it's one of the least entertaining to watch, but I still think it's one of my favorite parts of Steven's story and arc. But as an enjoyable watching experience, I don't think it's as high.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna just chill out and relax. I'm gonna watch I Am My Monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Let's actually talk about the episodes now, because I've rambled enough about that. What stands out for you? I've got a few in mind, I think.
Snow Day in.
Yeah, Snow Day, I think, definitely should go in there.
Stands out quite a bit. I feel like it's also serious in a way, because it develops the character in a way that's not like overly serious. Like, it's a fun episode and a serious episode at the same time.
That's another thing about all these episodes, is I think even the ones I don't like, I think most of them contribute to the declining state of Steven, and I think most of them have something to offer that adds to the final bit. One of my favorite episodes was Growing Pains. That episode where Steven goes to the doctor was really up there for me.
I don't know why, but Prickly Pear stands out to me in my brain. I think because it had those really awkward, intense moments with the cactuses repeating what Steven says.
I know, oh my god, that cactus.
I don't know, I kind of like that. Kind of shows that, like, for the first time in his life, he isn't being forward and upfront about how he feels about things. He's confiding in this thing that's really not anything beyond a mirror for how he feels.
Yeah.
And so when he thinks that it's a private thing, it's actually getting projected. The first time that we see him not want that to be the case.
That is a good episode. But yeah, with the doctor one, I really like it because, I don't know, I like seeing the build-up of, like, showing the past trauma and stuff as well. I think it's also a good episode for Connie too, like, because even though Steven's, like, hurting seeing her, she's still being very supportive in that episode, like, getting his dad there and taking the mum aside. It's too much for him.
Well, I don't know if you're still going to do this, but you were, like, thinking, like, we should make a video of, like, a tier list of, like, the most fucked up things that have happened to Steven. And then we, like, start listing them. It was like, oh, he turned into cats. He literally died of old age because he aged himself to death. They basically they list that stuff out in this episode. And I find that really funny.
I like that the cat thing was brought up. But no, that episode stood out to me.
Oh, we'll put it on the list.
Put it on the list. I also liked that like Greg got to step up a bit in that episode and actually like be a
Yes.
bit of a dad.
Also, I like that they're critical of Greg a little bit.
Yes, I agree. I think it's good that they criticize that he never brought Steven to the doctor.
Or school.
School, or yeah, we were talking about that when
dentist.
watching it. Like, we would talk about, like, it's weird that he's not going to school, bro. Like,
Or like that he's like a child and he has to get his own dinner and stuff like that and
Yeah.
like eat alone.
I really liked Fragments, the episode where Steven kills Jasper.
And yeah, that was intense at the end. And he goes into the
Insane
bath.
build up, yeah. I think Mr. Universe, Fragments, and Homeworld Bound are a really good like trilogy of episodes because this is like when Steven starts going to others to search for like the answer for like, you know, what's going on. And like first he tries to relate to his human half with Greg. That doesn't work and he ends up turning away from that. Then, you know, he goes to Jasper, his enemy, and he tries to kind of deal with his powers and stuff. Tries to learn to control his anger and embrace it kind of.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Homeworld Bound is he thinks maybe the diamonds are the only thing that are like him that can help. So he goes to learn from them, and they also just they're very ignorant
Doesn't
to like
work.
his problems. Well, he doesn't really tell them very well.
He kind of like psychically assaults Wyatt Diamond.
That's one of the things is he's never really fully forgiven the diamonds for like even though he's you know he acts like oh yeah you know I've forgiven you for this stuff like the small things like when White Diamond touches him on the chest he like freaks out for a sec. So obviously he still really doesn't like the diamonds.
And justifiably too, they were pretty bad.
Yo, they were
It's
evil
pretty
dictators.
crazy how quickly they had the turnaround from being bad to good.
Yeah, I would put maybe Fragments in there potentially as one of the better episodes.
I'd say Fragments, just because the ending was so shocking. Like I
Yeah.
remember when we watched that, I was like, "Oh,
Steven just killed
killed
somebody.
the guy! You just killed the guy!"
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
I liked the ending of Everything's Fine, but I didn't love that episode. That was where
I
Steven's
only
like
remember the ending.
Steven goes around like little homeworld trying to be useful because he's like kind
That's right.
I don't know. I don't think we needed the whole episode on him doing that.
Yeah.
We kind of get the point after like he does it once or twice. But the ending where they like confront him, I thought was really good, and like he starts to have a meltdown about like his lack of consequences and just everything. And My Monster, I think was a good episode,
Yes.
but I think it should be longer. I think they resolve it too fast. Like I think they build it up so well. Like it's really well done.
And then they just kind of hug it out.
And they hug it out, and I get in, you know, episode 20, the future. Like even though it's showing him
He's
better,
still not quite
he's
over
not.
it.
He's not better yet. Like he's still working his way through
Fully,
it.
yeah.
It did feel a bit fast.
I
don't know.
agree. So let's narrow it down. We got
Yes.
Snow Day, Growing Pains, Prickly Pear, Fragments, Mr. Universe, and Homeworld Bound. Snow Day's gotta stay.
For me, I would probably put it as Snow Day, Fragments, and Growing Pains, personally.
And
We
what's
gotta-
the worst episode?
Which one could it be? It's episode 6. It's episode 6. This episode
Very
was garbage.
Not special episode because it was bad. It's basically, it was all a dream the whole time, effectively. You know how Snow Day is like a really important episode and a really fun episode? A very special episode is like a silly episode and like meant to be a fun episode, except it's not important.
I'll give it this, though. The one redeeming thing for this episode that I liked was any of the stuff with Onion was really, really funny, I thought.
With the horror bits.
That bit, I think that was some of the funniest jokes of Steven Universe Future.
I don't know if you're using it in the thing, but this is the list.
Damn, there's the list. You happy with that, guys? Tell us in the comments below if you hate
What was
our
your
guts.
least favorite episode? I'm really interested to know what people's least favorite episodes are, because I can see some of these being a bit contentious, like Kevin Buddy. I could see people liking that episode.
I think we can all agree on what the real worst episode is, though. We all know what it is.
We all know what it is.
I'm not zooming in on it right now. No way.
I'm not painting a picture of his face over the screen.
I'm not biased at all, and there's no way that you can know what I think is the worst episode in the whole show. Next thing I want to talk about is, should there be more Steven Universe? Should there be a revival? I'm not sure. Actually, okay, I am sure. I would love a revival, to be honest. I would really, really like a revival. But what I would be worried about is, can they maintain that quality? I think there's definitely room for a continuation. The story is currently wrapped up in a really nice way. I think it doesn't have to follow Steven again. We could have spin-off shows. That would be really, really interesting. I feel like a Lapis and Peridot show could be maybe interesting. I'm not sure. I just want to see more of them because I feel like they were really fun. There we go. That's my thoughts on if there should be more Steven Universe. Overall, I really, really enjoyed Steven Universe. It was definitely really heartwarming. I'm going to watch it again at some point. And that is really it for what I wanted to talk about for Steven Universe. I know this wasn't very specific and it was all over the place, but I'm not reading off a script. I'm just pulling this straight out of my head. If you want to see me cover my initial impressions of other shows I watch, I'm happy to do that. I'm watching Arcane at the moment, and I'm probably going to watch Centaur World next, so maybe I could do that. Also, thank you for 10,000 subscribers. I can't believe we hit this milestone. To celebrate, I was thinking of doing a Q&A video. So if you have any questions about me, the channel, or just cartoons in general, please leave a comment below. If I get enough questions, then I will make a video. Thank you for bearing with me. Angus, have you got any final words?
Thank you, bye!